So photography, oops, I'm not in the frame of my thing. Photography is a mix of art and science. It's really easy to see the art aspect when you look at a picture. The science is a little bit more difficult to understand as a layperson. So I want to give you the basic history of photography, and that'll kind of point you in the direction of how it applies scientifically. The first camera was a pinhole camera. It dates back to about 1000 AD, believe it or not. They made wooden boxes, poked a hole in it, had a medium that would expose the image. Now those images didn't last for very long. They were mostly used for artists because as they were exposed to light outside of the box, they kind of faded away. The very first permanent image was created by Henry Fox Talbot. He made this image using silver chloride and salt. And this is a copy of the first permanent image that we ever had. It's nothing fabulous, but that's what it is. One of the more common types of photographs after that was the Duratype. And that was created by Louis Daguerre, and I'm probably mispronouncing his name horribly. He would make images on silver-plated copper. Along that same time frame, tintypes were popular. Tintypes is what most of our Civil War images are. They were our first journalistic images, and I'm sure you've all seen images from that time frame. This is an example of a Duratype photograph. Go ahead. The first way that after we had permanent photographs, that we processed them was a thing called wet plate. Wet plate was engineered by Frederick Scott Archer. It was cheaper than Duratype, and it allowed for reproductions. So those Duratype pictures, when you got one, that was it. You couldn't send it on to grandma, you couldn't have one, for each generation. It was one photograph. Now you could have reproductions of those. But they still were pretty pricey and weren't available for everybody. They were much more of a high society thing. Following wet plate was dry plate, which brought film processing much more into an affordable, for the average Joe, medium. It was less expensive, it involved less chemicals, it involved gelatin and silver bromine, and that was the glass plate process. The very first color photograph was by James Clerk Maxwell, and what he did was he took black and white pictures with in yellow, red, and blue, and he layered them on top of each other, and that produced the first color photograph. And this one right here is a reproduction of the very first color photograph. That was the other one on the other side is typical for the time and style. The very first commercial photographic brand was Kodak. It started in New York City in 1988 with George Eastman. They were the creator of the Brownie, which is this camera right here. Pretty much just a little box. You're welcome to look at it if you'd like. They are the inventors of Kodachrome, which was the first color film where you didn't have to layer. And they were the inventors of the very first digital DSLR. So they, unfortunately in 2012, they went bankrupt. So they are no longer a big competitor in the world of photography. Another big name is Nikon. Nikon started in 1917 under the name of Japan Optical Industries. They are currently worth $887 billion, and they created the first DSLR with their Nikon F in 1959. Another big name would be Canon, and they started also in Tokyo, Japan in 1937 under the name Original Precision Optical Industries. They are worth $3.557 trillion. And they are kind of what brought the digital DSLR, both in the film and the digital, It made it affordable. An original DSLR was about $6,000. So if you can imagine in the 70s what 6,000, I mean, people's houses didn't cost that much. Now a top of the line Canon DSLR costs, I'd say, upper $2,000 to $3,000. And if you put that in terms of our money now, it isn't nearly as expensive as it was back then. The recent and future history of photography. In 1990, Photoshop became available, which revolutionized the way that we edited pictures. Before 1990, there was no taking that zit off your face or changing that mole or slimming you down. Now the things you can do with Photoshop are amazing. You can create entire new worlds just with Photoshop, and it's almost its own discipline in and of itself, in addition to photography. In 2000, the first cell phone had its camera. It was by Sharp. It was called the J phone. If any of you are old enough, and I know a few of us are, to remember those original cell phone pictures, they were horrible, and they have come so far. Now you can blow them up to poster size. In 2001, the company Polaroid went out of business. Polaroid started with the little cameras that you could press the thing and the picture popped out, and they were our first, Instagram. The future of photography is mirrorless cameras. Inside a DSLR, there's a little bitty mirror, and it bounces the light and does its little thing. Those are the way of the past, and the way of the future, they're no longer there. They don't freeze up, they don't cause, they're much quicker than what we have now. Thank you.